sagebrushy
You want
taste.
the ones that have been eaten out in the cornfields.
Or the ones that have been eaten up.
Councilmember Graham?
Here.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Plaza?
Here.
Councilmember Chapman?
Here.
Councilmember Humbert?
Here.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Here.
Councilmember Benson?
Here.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. This is a workshop this evening for the 2019 proposed preliminary. Oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? Preliminary budget presented by the departments. I have a message this evening, and then I'm going to kick it over to Mr. Boyce to have him explain. But before we get started, I would like, without objection, to read a proclamation that I've set before you this evening. It's not on the agenda, but I would like to get that out at the beginning of the meeting without objection, please. Okay. Seeing no objections, I will begin with the proclamation. Proclamation against Initiative 940, whereas enhancing public safety and emergency response is a top priority for the City of Woodland, as is the continuing effective financial management. And whereas Initiative 940 would impose costly and unproven aspirational goals requiring law enforcement to receive violence de-escalation, mental health, and first aid training and provide first aid, and whereas Initiative 940 would alter long-proven standards for use of deadly force, adding a novel good faith standard and the requirement of an independent investigation. And whereas Initiative 940, if passed, poses a real threat to effective law enforcement and quality professional police forces throughout the state. And whereas this initiative, if passed, would increase costs to local governments and making the hiring and the retaining of qualified law enforcement officers more difficult and more costly to local governments such as ours. And whereas Initiative 940 does nothing to make our communities safer, but would only increase the violence by tying the hands of our police officers, troopers, and deputies, and risking the lives of our law-abiding citizens. And whereas current state law already requires officers to receive the de-escalation, mental health, and first aid training, Initiative 940 fails to provide funding for the additional novel training and ties the officers' commission to these new training mandates, forcing the local governments to fund the training. And whereas Initiative 940 would mandate an officer render medical assistance even while a crime was still in progress. And whereas Initiative 940 would require officers to render aid to suspects before their victims. And whereas, if passed, this initiative forces an officer to act outside of not only their safety, but the safety of the community. And whereas since 1986, the state legislature has mandated that officers should not be prosecuted for killing in the line of duty, provided that they acted in good faith and without evil intent. This is a nearly impossible standard for prosecutors to meet, requiring them to get inside the head of an officer who is in a tense situation, requiring a split-second decision. And whereas Initiative 940 requires prosecutors to use a new and unproven subjective good faith test, the exact meaning of which would have to be resolved by this court over many years in deciding whether to pursue criminal charges against an officer following a shooting, making the hiring and retaining of qualified and professional law enforcement officers more difficult and more costly to local governments. And whereas this initiative seeks to avoid the legislative process and threatens to undermine proven strategic initiatives and effective financial management to provide public safety and emergency response for the residents of the City of Woodland. Now, therefore, I, William Aithen, Mayor of the City of Woodland, do hereby urge the citizens of the City of Woodland to vote no on Initiative 940 and instead to contact your elected state legislators asking them to address the issue during the 2019 legislative session, dated this 22nd day of October 2018. I'm going to give this to the chief to hang up in the office.
For supporting it all.
You bet. Thank you, sir. Thank you for all you do. I appreciate council for allowing me the time. Moving on to the budget and summary overview. In front of you, you have a binder for this budget process. And we're going to go over a few items this evening. And first of all is the message from myself. And I will kick this off with that. Questions before we get started? All right. It is my pleasure to present the 2019 preliminary budget for the City of Woodland. The budget is balanced and has been prepared in accordance with the Washington budget law. The total budget for all funds is $23,558,608 million, with no sales tax going into General Reserve Fund 301 and a transfer of $200,000 from the general fund to the General Reserve Fund. This budget has been constructed with the prioritization of public safety in mind. The services delivered by police and fire are of the utmost importance in providing the citizens of Woodland a safe community where quality of life is high. The police department is a talented group of dedicated professionals that are committed to our community. Even with strong community support for our police, the city was 17 votes short of passing a measure last November that would have allowed a levy lid lift to fund 3 new positions in the department. With that said, police calls for service continue to increase and additional resources are needed to keep up with the demand. Available resources do not allow additional police officers to be added at this time. Fire services are provided through a contract with Clark County Fire and Rescue. These services were enhanced in 2018 by the opening of a new fire station on Scott Avenue. The new facility will help Clark County Fire and Rescue deliver the best customer service possible and create a safe, user-friendly environment. By reprioritizing our focus on public safety, the overwhelming challenges facing our city financially will allow each of us to better plan for future investments in our infrastructure. Included in the budget are projected revenues and expenditures for the 2019 fiscal year. As a general explanation of the budget, levels of service in all departments will be maintained. Revenues and expenditures have been estimated with a conservative philosophy. Revenue forecasts are based on current state and local economic trends. Budgeting formulas provided by Municipal Research and Services Center, or the MRSC, and when appropriate, historical receipts. As stated in the budget summary, total available fund balance and revenues for the city are $23,558,608. Total expenditures will be $23,558,608. Property taxes are estimated using the 1% statutory limit, resulting in a 1.482293 property, or let me re-say that again, limit resulting in $1,482,293. Property valuation are estimated at $804,210,520. $1,547,600 in sales tax is distributed between the general fund, which is 79%, street fund at 20%, and Fund 304, the equipment acquisition fund, of 1%. Expenditures have been appropriated to ensure the police department is properly equipped and the contract for fire services is funded. The City of Woodland budget is an outline representing levels of service provided to the citizenry. The 2019 preliminary budget reflects a 3.75% increase in wages for the Woodland Police Association, or the WPA, collective bargaining agreement. While the WPA is currently working, while the CBA is in a mediation, and the increase represents the city's good faith offer for fiscal year 2019. The city also has 2 other CBAs open with the Teamsters, Clerical, and Public Works units. Expenditures do not reflect a Teamster wage increase at this time. A 2.5% cost of living increase is included for the non-represented staff. General Fund 001. The 2019 beginning fund balance for the general fund is estimated to be $178,000, just shy of $179,000. New revenues are expected to be $5,940,000 for total available resources of $6,119,335. Total anticipated expenditures and ending fund balance are $6,119,335. The general fund balance at the end of 2019 is anticipated to be just shy of $179,000 again. The ending fund balance maintains the fiscal year 2018 level. With the overall philosophy to maintain city services at current levels, a transfer of $475,956 from Fund 301 General Reserves is going to be required. The police department budget comprises 30% of the general fund, and the fire service contract with Clark County Fire and Rescue is 20%. Combined police and fire make up 50% of the general fund expenditure appropriations. Other general fund departments saw no significant changes. The park fund continues on into 2019 with tight expenditure appropriations. With the beginning fund balance in the park fund estimated at $644, the revenues generated from property tax and community center and park rentals have required general reserves Fund 301 contributions to maintain services. For 2019, Fund 301 will provide a contribution of $62,493. Street Fund 104. The Street Fund at the end of 2017 repaved Old Pacific Highway and as such greatly reduced the fund balance. Historically, the Street Fund will do a major project and then provide general maintenance on streets until fund balance is replenished to an adequate level to take on another large project. Usually, larger projects happen about every 3 years. Major revenues for the Street Fund come from property and sales tax and gas tax. These resources have not been sufficient to keep up with the road maintenance needs in the city. In 2016, City Council formed a Transportation Benefit District and referred a ballot measure to voters in 2016 and again in 2017 to provide additional funds for street maintenance. Both measures were narrowly defeated. The city will continue to maintain streets to the best of its ability to the level of funding available. General Reserve Fund 301. The General Reserve Fund is maintaining a fund balance of just over $1 million for 2019. This fund provides resources for police equipment, debt service for both police and fire station, bonds, and general government services. The major sources for funding include real estate excise tax, gambling tax, and sales tax if available. Gambling tax receipts have fallen sharply, approximately $200,000 per year, due to the A casino operation pulling patrons from the local establishments and a reduction in the gambling tax rate. Sales tax has not been distributed to General Reserve Fund as it is currently needed to balance the General Fund 10001. The fund balance is holding steady and slightly increasing for 2019. The Public Safety Fund, number 319. With the successful completion of the new fire station, the Public Safety Fund will be closed in 2019. Our Water Fund, number 401. The Water Fund is an enterprise fund, meaning it must generate enough revenue through rates it charges users to be self-sufficient. In 2018, the Water Fund budgeted for a major plant upgrade of the electrical and HVAC systems, and the water plant totaling approximately $740,000. These dollars were transferred out of the Water Fund to the water treatment plant GVAC electrical valve project. HVAC electrical valve fund or project fund number 414. Additional valve work is also required in the project. The city will award the bid for both projects in the coming weeks. The majority of both projects will take place during 2019. Water rates are expected to increase 7% for 2019, pending a rate study that will be developed during the water plan, which must be complete in 2019. Ending fund balance is expected to decrease from $664,727 in 2018 to $299,762 in 2019. In the Sewer Fund, number 402. The Sewer Fund completed its $600,000 dewatering, or as we talked about, the screw press project in 2018. The Sewer Fund will significantly reduce the cost of transporting its waste product for land application due to the project. Rates are estimated to increase 7% for 2019. The city is currently searching for a consultant who can perform a rate analysis based on the recently completed sewer plan. In summary, the budget was developed through many hours of analysis and discussion with executive staff and my office, the result of which is a budget that is balanced and prioritizes public safety while generally providing the same level of service throughout all city departments. While developing this budget, it is evident that expenses continue to outpace our revenues. The city will need to continue to discuss and find new ways to provide important services to the community. City Council has been proactive in searching for sustainable funding for city services. In 2018, City Council enacted adjustments to the city fee resolution and has asked staff to provide information so it can properly analyze impact fees to developers. City Council has also referred funding alternatives to the electorate to enhance resources for police department staffing and the street maintenance. I plan to discuss alternative sources of funding with City Council during its 2019 retreat. Alternate sources of revenue could include an adjustment to the public utility tax, levy lid lift to fund additional police officers, and reconsideration of funding the Transportation Benefit District, or an adjustment to the business license fees, along with impact fee adjustments. The cultivation of these resources could allow the city to leverage these funds with the available grants to bring even greater resources to our community. I hope City Council will favorably consider the 2019 preliminary budget. With the ever-changing economic trends, we must continue to manage the taxpayers' dollars with the utmost care and concern. With this in mind, I have limited expenditures where necessary and ask for expenditures only when needed. I consider this budget practical and believe it continues to move the city forward in providing quality service to the citizens of Woodland. Mr. Boyce.
Okay, so, in tab 2, you'll see, we've reformatted the way we're presenting the budget. We're trying to respond to city council requests to make it easier to read and comprehend. In doing this, we still have to prepare the detailed budget that we've seen in years past in order to come up with these numbers. So what I'm attempting to do in this is to show fund by fund both resources and expenditures on one page instead of going back and forth between larger budgets, more detailed budgets. We're also looking at these in different categories such as salaries and benefits, operations, capital, when we break down the expenditures. So anyway, I'll be looking for feedback from City Council, what you like, what you don't like, if you need more information, if this is sufficient. So tonight we plan on going through these items, presenting the numbers. At the next meeting, which will be on the 29th, next Monday, we'll have department directors provide you a presentation and talk about what they're happy about, where they see the department going in 2019, where they requested funds that weren't provided. We want City Council to have all the information so you can make an educated decision on where to set the budget. So with that, unless there are some questions right off, I'll just jump into what we have here and go from there.
Okay.
All right, so the first item in tab 2 is the budget calendar. And just to give you a sense of where we're going and what's going to happen at what time. So on page 2 of that, sorry, there are page numbers in the upper right-hand corner. That's something else we added, so every page has a distinct page number, so I hope that will help moving forward. So on page 2, I believe we have tonight's event, 10:22, the second item down. So we talked about the workshop. Go a little further down, 10:29, our second workshop with department head presentations. And basically, we've set aside every Monday until the budget is adopted. And it will really be determined by City Council how many meetings you want to have. So after the budget calendar, first of all, does anyone have any questions on the budget calendar? Okay, so following the budget calendar, we have the city's organizational chart. No real changes from 2018. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I'll just let you ask questions if they come up. All right, so the next page, page 11, you see the budget overview and process. This section was meant to give a synopsis of what's entailed in the budget. I won't go ahead and, unless you'd like me to, I won't go ahead and read right through it. And I know some of you probably haven't had a chance to yet. But basically what we're saying, to paraphrase, is that the budget is a document the city produces that outlines priorities, basically, for the city. Which projects get funded, which ones don't. I do have a typo in here, paragraph paragraph 3 says the 2017 process should be 2019. We'll replace that. But basically, it's just a statement to show the public what's going on with the budget. So, really overall, as the mayor stated, the budget is maintaining services across the board. Fund balances are tight. There's no other way to say it. They are, but we're maintaining fund balance. I do have a couple handouts I wanted to give you that you can add to the packet. Take one of each. I'll get you these. That discuss beginning and ending fund balance. Just want to hit that before we get into the rest of this. Wait till everyone gets their copies.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so the handout entitled Beginning Fund Balance shows you a synopsis over the last 2 years and into 2019. And I show the funds, the general fund, the general reserve fund, 301, the park fund, and the street fund. And the reason for highlighting these separate funds is they all have revenue sources that include either property tax or sales tax that we distribute year to year to these various funds, and they're needed in order to balance all the different funds. So when looking at our fund balance, I like to look at all 4 of those funds together. So this gives you a sense of where they've gone, where they're going, and it's just good for reference to have a general understanding of the health of the city. So as you can see, general fund in 2017, there was a fund balance of $396,000. 2018, 203. 2019, 178. General reserve fund had beginning fund balances of, in 2017, $1,020,000. 2018, $952,000, and expected in 2019, $1,079,000. The park fund, as you can see, doesn't have much fund balance at all. 2019, we're expecting to start with $644. The street fund, 2017, we had $280,000 beginning fund balance. 2018, $174,000. 2019, $127,000. So the totals of all combined, 2017, we started with $1.7 million. 2018, $1.329 million, and 2019, $1.387 million. So what you can take away from this is there was a drop between 2017 and 2018 and a slight incline or increase going from 2018 to 2019. So moving on.
Question?
Please.
Mr. Fredericks.
What are our general fund monthly expenditures?
I knew you were going to ask that question. I didn't calculate that, but it's
Approximately?
I would have to look.
Okay.
I can get that number for you.
On the, so the 301 general reserve fund, of the money that is in that account, how much is restricted? Restricted, and how much is not? And the question that I would have is, the reason we have a general reserve fund is for, in my mind, a rainy day, which we've had before. What I'm trying to understand is, how does that general reserve fund does it or does it not comply with the financial policies and procedures that have been passed by the council?
So there are different revenues that come into Fund 301. The real estate excise tax 1 and 2 go into that fund. Those monies can be spent for construction type projects. One, I believe, can also be used for facilities, and REIT 2 cannot be used for facilities, but construction type projects. So we're tracking where these different levels are. So for 2018, we zeroed out the REIT funds, both categories 1 and 2. Then we also received gambling tax funds. So we follow that. For 2018, we had a balance of $321,000. In 2019, that's going to be dropping by $200,000 in order to help balance police operations. And some gambling tax funds that are expected to come into 2019 are being left in the general fund in order to purchase patrol equipment. And then we have sales tax funds. Historically, the city has taken a portion of sales tax funds, put it in this fund that can be used for any general government purpose. The restriction on the gambling tax funds, it's been set aside for public safety. And the only reason for that restriction is that the city council implemented that restriction. So that's where we sit with different types of funds. In 2019,
Mr. Boyce, just one moment. Mrs. Rance.
The tax, or the gambling tax, that can only be used for police and fire, can it, or can it not?
right, and that's due to city council action.
Okay.
If city council chose to change its mind on what those funds could be used for, that's an action the city council can take.
Okay.
So for 2019, we expect to receive $177,400 in real estate excise tax 1. Real estate excise tax 2, we anticipate to receive $195,675. Another source of income is investment interest. We expect $11,000, and that would go to the unrestricted balance. And we also have a distribution from the general fund this year of $200,000 back to 301. So that's where, well, and also one more contribution from gambling tax revenues. After we purchase the vehicle, there's $18,286,000 that's going back to Fund 301. Does that answer your question?
I'm trying to understand how long could we keep same expenditures without making any cuts given a rainy day? And do we have 2 months of expenditures, a month and a half? And how is that in comparison to policy that we have passed? Is it 3 months, 6 months? I can't remember. And is that ending fund balance?
I want to say the policy states, and I don't have it in front of me, I want to say it states 3 months of operating. And I believe last time I looked at it in these negotiations, I think we were sitting between 1 and 2 months of
Okay.
operating reserve. So it's the fund balances we have now aren't equaling ambitions set by city council when developing the policy. So,
And the policy is consistent with other municipalities around the state as a general benchmark for
It is. It is.
what the appropriate reserve amount should be.
Yeah, and, you know, you go from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, every jurisdiction's a little bit different. But, when you're looking at general consensus, you know, 3 months reserve is about, you know, I wanna say a little below mid-range when you look at different jurisdictions across the board, so.
So it's below mid-range, and we're below mid-range.
Yeah, we are.
I think it's important to know that.
Right. And I do too, and that's why I wanted to talk more about fund balance with council this year. One of the back and forths we had in developing this budget is with the park fund, for instance. And when we get there, we'll talk a little more in depth. But we have some beautiful parks, and they're being well maintained right now, but you know, labor costs money. And in the near future, maybe even next year, we may need to make some hard choices about what level of upkeep in the parks we're going to have. But I'll let our public works director address that when she's here next Monday. Any other questions?
Not yet.
Okay. So, I'd like to point everyone's attention to the ending fund balance sheet. So the beginning fund balance is what you start the year with. Ending fund balance is what you finish the year with. And basically, fund balance is just, you know, the difference between assets and liabilities. So for the general fund, and that's why the beginning and ending fund balances can be different, and usually are. So for the general fund in 2017, we had 203,000 ending fund balance. 2018, 178, just shy of 179,000. And in 2019, it's maintaining at 179,000 approximately. The general reserve fund in 2017 was at 1,020,000. 2018, we're expecting it to drop at the end of this calendar year to 952,000, and 2019 up to 1,079,000. The park fund in 2017, the ending fund balance is only $2,100. At the end of 2018, we're expecting $644 ending fund balance, and at the end of 2019, $5,000. So it's minimal. The street fund, 2017, 173,000. 2018, the ending fund balance was 187,000, and at the end of 2019, 100,000. And our public works director is trying to do as many maintenance projects as funding will allow, and that's why you see the decrease a little bit in fund balance. Also, the old Pacific Highway project reduced fund balance, but if you can remember, the public works director came to you and asked for, in 2018, this current year, for $60,000 to finish some maintenance projects. So that resulted in a little bit lower fund balance than we were anticipating at the end of 2019. So the totals, we have 2017 about 1.4 million, 2018 1,319,000, and 2019 1,363,000 approximately. So the trend we're trying to show is that we're attempting to stabilize fund balance, and we need to start thinking in the future about increasing that fund balance in order to comply with some of those policies that Mr. Fredericks discussed. Questions? which talks about available resources, including fund balance and revenues of all funds. Just to give you a quick overview, available resources include beginning fund balance and current 2019 revenues we expect to receive. So, so the 2019 beginning fund balance is the remainder after 2018 expenditures are subtracted from the 2018 available resources. Current revenues are defined as revenues expected to be received during the fiscal year. Overall resources have increased by $3,558,000, representing a 15% increase. The majority of the increase is due to grant funds received from 4 public works projects and transfer from the water fund to the water treatment plant HVAC valve project fund 414. So what you see below that paragraph is, first of all, we talk about current revenues. So we're looking across all funds. So this is everything from general fund to water, sewer, everything we have. So the actuals in 2017 were about $14.2 million. That's revenues received during that year. Budgeted for 2018, $14.5 million. Budgeted for 2019, $17.2 million. So the change from 2018 to 2019 is about an increase of $2.7 million. Beginning fund balance, the actual for 2017 was $5.9 million. 2018, $5.4 million. And 2019, $6.3 million. Change from 2018 to 2019 is an increase of $848,000. The combined current revenue and fund balance, the actuals for 2017 at $20,191,000. For 2018, $19,999,000. Budget for 2019 is $23,558,000.
Question?
Sure. Mr. Fredericks.
So it's a little misleading, at least in my mind, to suggest that our revenues have grown by 2.7 million, and we're having trouble funding things. Can you talk a little bit about the increase in the revenue and your last sentence, where it indicates that the majority of the increase is due to grant funds? What was the total dollar grant funds received? Because that should be, in my mind, subtracted off that number.
Right. So
Because you can't use those to fund police, fire, the clerk's office, the
Well, in
judicial
all of these
system.
numbers, as you know, we need to state different funds have different purposes, and the monies in those funds can only be used for that purpose generally. Such as the water sewer funds. They're enterprise funds. They're meant to be run more like a business where you basically sell a product and you charge for that product, and that sustains the fund over time. General fund's a little different. It's funded by property taxes, fees for services, franchise fees, a whole host of different items. Those monies can be used for any general governmental purpose. Grants we receive can only be used for the project for which they were given for. So the majority of the funds, when we're talking about $23 million, the majority of those funds can only be used for specific purposes and can't be transferred between. I don't have the number right now for exactly what the grant awards were, but I can pull that out of the data.
How about just the general fund? How much is the general fund revenue increasing?
So.
Because that's where you can, that's really the only increase that you have is the general fund that you can play with, which is roughly, last time I checked, approximately $5 million a year.
Right, so if we jump ahead to page 17. beginning fund balance decreased by 24,259. The overall budget is 6.1 million, including the fund balance. Excluding the fund balance, we're looking at 5,940,000. So, and you're correct. Those are the funds that can be used for any governmental purpose.
How much of the current revenue that is in that number, does that include transfer in from other funds?
It does.
If it does, then I'm just concerned that we say, oh, look, they're increasing by $500,000 in revenue, when all we're doing is moving money from other funds to increase that amount, which it really is, you're not really increasing
Right.
revenue.
Right. So if you go back, well, let me give you the number from the mayor's note. We talk about so we had 475,000 going from 301 to the general fund. We had 200,000 going back from the general fund to Fund 301. So you can see the net change of 449,000. You know, really the revenue is flat.
Right.
Just taking little notes of, I'm not saying I'm going to get you something.
Oh, I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay, so back to page 12, I think we covered that. Page 13 shows the estimated revenues for 2019, and again, it shows all funds. This is just so city council and the public can see, you know, what we're budgeting for throughout the year. So, first line, current expense, that's another name for general fund. 2019, we're looking at 6.1 million, that figure we talked about before. So, these numbers include the revenue we expect to receive that year and the beginning fund balance. And again, at the bottom, you see for 2019, the overall resources, I'd like to say, for all funds at 23,558,000.
Are these all committed revenues that we have received a commitment on that we are actually going to receive? I'm asking because of the items that are in red. There's about $3.3 million in revenues that are highlighted in red on here that appear to be two of them appear to be fairly new funds that have been created.
Right, so the items in red we were highlighting just to make sure city council was aware of what was going on. The sidewalk project, Fund 320, the first one, that's the grant we received, and I believe those funds are committed, but it's something new, so we wanted the city council to be aware of it. Previous years, we funded different projects out of this fund, including the Beechwood sidewalk project. So we use this fund for different projects, but we've retired the Beechwood project, and now we're moving on. Fund 327, the next red item, says COG, STP Transportation Exit 21 Feasibility Study. This is a grant we received from the COG, or through the COG, for $600,000 for the study of Exit 21. So it hasn't been awarded. Well, it has been awarded. We haven't received the funds yet, but it is a go for us to receive these funds in 2019. The West Scott Reclamation I guess I should say, when we're talking about 600,000, and Tracy will get more into this when she is here, a good portion of that is grant funds, but there is a small city match that usually has to happen on each grant. When you apply for grants, the higher the match you put in, the more competitive you are in receiving funds. So, just be aware of that. And then Fund 328, Westcott Reclamation Railroad Tracks. That's another grant we applied for and received. So a portion of that is city match, but at least 90% of it is grant funds. Fund 413, the Booster Pump Station Water Treatment Plant improvements. This is another new project. Again, the funds have been secured. Fund 414, the water treatment plant HVAC electric valve project. Again, this is funds coming from the water fund to this special project fund, and the funding is there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
The next page 14, this is the 2019 tax levy computation. We talked about in the budget message from the mayor, if you look in the second column, titled 2019 to be collected 101% estimate, you can see we're expecting in total in yellow to receive about 1.493 million. The next column over in yellow shows the assessed value estimates for 2019. So we're building into the budget that council would be willing to increase the tax collection by that 1% that we're allowed by state law to collect. You can also see new construction. We're also allowed to get new construction besides that. That's in the first column, the second number down, $40,624. In the green area, straight down from that, 2019 estimated revenue distribution by fund. You can see where we have the money being distributed. So the general fund would receive $825,735. Street fund. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Over in. That should be 2019. So the orange box to the right of the green box. So we anticipate the general fund to receive $960,000. The street fund $278,200. Park fund $126,000, and our debt service fund $117,000. And that totals the $1.482 million.
So the increase in the 1% is $10,000, almost 11, 10,932. Is that what am I reading that right?
Yeah. Well, right.
So the 1% property tax increase is going to achieve a nearly $11,000 gain, correct?
Correct.
The next question I have is the following line underneath that, where it talks about the Clark County Fire and Rescue contract. We passed a utility tax, I want to say, well, I can't remember, it's been a while, in the purpose of that utility tax was to have 100% of that to fund the increase in cost associated with that. The City of Woodland for many years has enjoyed a reduced rate, less than the $1.50 that we're currently paying. Most people are paying $1.50. City of Woodland we're augmenting that. We're not paying $1.50. We're short again this year, appears to be $103,000. That is unsustainable in my mind, which, leads to have the discussion of how do we bridge that gap to fund the additional public safety expense that in essence that we're paying for, which I know Mr. Jackson's not here, but I could ask him to provide me a list of all the wonderful things, the improvements over where we were versus where we're at today. Now, if I were gonna bridge that gap, what revenue resources do we have available to us? Or, on the flip side of that, where could we cut to fund the makeup of the $102,000 that we have a revenue shortfall on to actually pay for that contract?
Right, so, public utility tax is something city council has discretion over. Right now, it's set at 6.5%, that can be increased.
That's a utility tax, correct?
Right, public utility tax. So that's an option the city would have. As far as cuts that could be made, it's a little harder to answer that question. We are running pretty bare bones. We've made, those of you that were here last year, we went through some exercises to make cuts last year. Really, at this point, we'd be talking about dropping service levels if we were going to make cuts on that level. If we were, that would be a hard cut to make. But budgets are about priorities, and they're just tough discussions.
So, I would like to at least look at that, just to show what our options are from a revenue standpoint, just so we have an understanding as we go through this. I'd like to see that information. I think it's important to have a discussion on it. I'm not advocating one way or another, but having the knowledge of what our options are would be good. I'm looking at this and I'm having it appears to me, from just what I've seen in the maybe 2 hours that I've spent in this, and I've only been here, an hour, so I've only looked at this for an hour. Well, not even this, but just the packet of information that we received leads me to believe that what we're on here is an unsustainable path going forward. And it's time probably to have a really tough discussion on how do we make it sustainable going forward.
Right, and that's 100% accurate. When you look at the mayor's budget message, he talks about meeting with council during its next retreat and talking about different options. We listed out some things like public utility tax, that we have discretion over. So we'll definitely have to have a hard discussion about revenues and expenditures and determine what the best course for the city is moving forward. This budget now does maintain services and can. We're steady on fund balance, which is important. We're not regressing at this point. But you're absolutely right. Moving forward, there are some tough decisions that will have to be made. We've already ran some numbers on public utility tax, and I can get those to the council. So that will be easy information to get forward to.
Mr. Benjamin.
Is there a limit on how high we can raise public utility tax?
I believe there is, but we're not near it at this point. Right now, we're at 6.5%, and I believe there are some cities that are 16%.
I believe Battleground's at 18.
Yeah, so there is some opportunity to move there. But I will have to research and see what the limit is. I don't know off the top of my head what the limit is. But, again, as you're all aware, the reason we call these things tough decisions is that you all know what the impact on the citizenry is. Conversely, you know what services have to be provided, and you know what the impact of budget cuts are. So it's one of those things you have to weigh. And you feel those impacts directly because you are taxpaying citizens.
And I think one of the challenges is, I know I've gone through the budget. Well, this is my 11th budget process. And every time I've gone through it, I have gone through it line by line. I've probably been over detailed. And I've been criticized for doing just that, going through and looking at the line items, because the general idea is to have hey, we're going to give you the high level overview of the budget, and from there you can make a decision. And I'm fine with, I have faith in the process that we're using. I'm very appreciative that we've received another budget that is balanced. But in my mind, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to find. I've done that and found very little. And some of those where you're saying, well, we could cut there, but you might end up spending it anyway, and then you're going to have to do a budget amendment later. We can't rob the park fund. There's no more money in it. I mean, when I say rob, you're basically moving. Hey, we got to keep the lights on. That's a nice to have, but we have to supply fire, and you need the police. Those are requirements. And so the street fund, when we Old Pack Highway, that's the only places you can really take and move money around that are general fund items. So it has me concerned as a policymaker for setting up the future when I'm no longer sitting in this seat, that we've put the city on a good path. And it concerns me that the path that we're on is not sustainable, given the fact that our expenditures are rising faster than our revenues. And I'm concerned because what else would you like us to cut? Because now we're talking, and hey, everything's going great now. Revenues seem to be good. What happens when we're not doing so great? I've been there. I've had employees. Councilmember Humber can remember this, where you have employees sitting in the audience because we're talking about whether or not we're going to fund their jobs. I don't want to be in that type of situation. I want to get to a spot where we can have a sustainable, rather than talking about, here's what we can do this year, which is about what we could do last year and the year before that, and the year before that. It seems to me that the path that we're on is not sustainable. But we can talk about that at our retreat, but I think at some point we really do need to have the discussion about what we're going to do, because
And as Mayor stated before, council has been proactive trying to come up with alternatives for revenue, which we took to the voters, fortunately were not passed. But we need to have that discussion again. And the difficult part for any government agency is you're limited with what you can do. There are statutory limits on property tax. There's only so much sales tax that comes in. Really, there's a handful of options cities have, and that's public utility tax, levy lid lifts, fees, passed our fee resolution and made some changes. But, you know, when you look at fees, that's a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of expenditures that are out there. So while you're adjusting fees and trying to keep them in line, you know, it's still just a small part of the revenue stream. So it's going to be a difficult conversation. What we really wanted to do this time was maintain service and stabilize the fund balances, which I believe we've done. But Councilmember Fredericks is 100% right that, you know, we can't maintain this level of service forever unless, you know, there's some changes there. So we will be talking about all of those items. Okay, so, and, you know, I don't want to give the impression either that we're trying to paint a rosier picture than the city is really in. You know, basically what we're trying to do is just state the numbers. There's more to it than just stating, you know, the 2019 numbers. As we're discussing right now, you know, there are projections moving forward and what we need to be aware of. So, okay. So moving on, page 15. This is the expenditures for all funds. And we've broken these down into different categories: salary and benefits, operations, capital, debt service, and then a total of all funds. The operations does include ending fund balance, so everyone's aware. So the salaries and benefits, you can see from 2018 to 2019, there's an overall increase of 187,000. Part of that is due to union increase that we're budgeting for the police union, 2.75 to 3.75%. And we do have an increase for exempts of 2.5%. We have 2 Teamster contracts open for public works and clerical. We haven't budgeted anything at this point, as we still need to get into negotiations. The operations.
Question?
Mr. Benjamin, sorry.
You mentioned it again, that the budget expenditures include the ending fund balance. Well, that makes it really neat that you can see that the expected revenue and beginning balance equals this, and we're going to balance that with the expected expenditures plus ending fund balance. It really doesn't tell us what the expenditures are going to be. It's kind of hard to see from this, even at this level. Are we spending anywhere close to what we're actually bringing in, or?
I can back that out and separate that, so I can do that for you, so you can see that more.
I think it might be a little bit more.
Okay, so on this sheet you can see different categories. Capital, we're looking at an increase of 3.7 million. Most of that's due to public works projects and grants. Debt service, there's a decrease, and I have to get into the detail to tell you what that is, but overall, decrease of 443,000. Total expense, all funds, we have an increase of 3.5 million. Okay, the next page, page 16, shows basically totals. for all funds, and it includes ending fund balance. So you can see for the general fund, we're at 6.1 million. Carry it all the way down, again, total all funds, 23,558,000. Again, the funds highlighted in red are newer projects that we wanted to make city council aware of, same as on the revenue side of things. Okay, page 17.
Mr. Boyce, we're going to stop right there for a moment, take a 5-minute break. Okay. It's 8:06.
That was Michelle.
I'll check with that. Yeah, it's linking to
No,
our-
not planning for that. I want to, but no.
She might as well be written in Japanese.
So this is your fortune that I've sat in on this. And get real, Mr. Curtis. Next time we'll ask real minutes or mayor minutes.
Yeah.
Mayor minutes, always.
All right,
Are we up and recording? You good?
we are.
Okay.
All right, page 17. Here we're talking just general fund, looking at revenues and expenditures. The current revenue and revenues you expect to receive during the fiscal year. And as we talked about, it includes fund transfers from 301. You can see the change from 2018 to 2019 of 449,000. Beginning fund balance drops a little bit to 24,259, and the available resources combined increase by 424,000, again including transfers between funds. The expenditures, you can see the increased salary and benefits of about 19,441. Operations, and again, I'll back out the fund balance, the ending fund balance, but operations about 448. Capital decreased in the general fund, it's 119,000 in 2018, and in 2019 we're looking at 76,000. So overall expense total in general fund for 2019 is the 6.1 million, which you can see equals the 6.1 million of resources available. Moving on, we look at the individual departments in the general fund. So we're looking at expenditures. The first fund is legislative expenditures, and this account basically covers city council. We're on page 18. So you can see a change in salaries. That's mostly due to last year we didn't budget for the full amount the city councilor could be compensated for. In 2019, I believe that is the full amount. So if everyone went to all the available meetings you could receive compensation for, we have an expenditure appropriation covered. Operations, really no change there, 17,000 in 2018 and 17,000 in 2019. Total legislative change is the 6,550 between the 2 years. So the total budget being $49,300. Judicial expenditures, the next column, have reduced slightly. So the ending budget is $61,100. That's down about $5,000 from the previous year. Page 19, executive expenditures. This covers expenses for the mayor and city administrator. Difference in salaries and benefits, 11,800. Operations, an increase of $1,000. Total executive change, $12,845. Finance, budgeting, accounting, auditing, administrative expenditures. This is the clerk treasurer's budget, basically. Salaries and benefits for 2019, we have set at $604,000. Change between 2018 and 2019 is $17,170. Operations went from 128,000 to 133,000 for a net increase of 4,500 approximately. Total budget for 2019 would be $737,840, an increase from the 2018 expenditure budget of $21,718. Legal services expenditures. So this covers the city attorney contract and the contracts we have with our labor attorneys. In 2018, we budgeted $194,442. Basing on the historical payments mostly to the city attorney, we reduced that a slight bit to $190,300 for 2019. In 2018, we increased expenditures because we were negotiating the police contract, and we switched city attorneys from Mr. Ewing to Mr. Randolph, and there was a slight increase there for city attorney expenditures. We're keeping that budget elevated going into 2019 because we have two Teamster contracts we're hoping to settle soon, and the police contract remediation. If it goes to arbitration, that will be in 2019, and we'll incur some legal fees associated with that if it goes there. Hopefully, we can settle before that, but just in case we appropriated the expenditure.
So that should have parentheses on it then.
I'm sorry.
The 4192 should have parentheses, correct?
Oh, yes. All right, Civil Service Commission, not a lot of appropriation there. It's decreased by $100 from 2019 to 2018. It was $700, now it's $600. General facilities, this is basically used to cover expenditures related to facilities, so City Hall, Public Works Office, and such, as examples. So salaries and benefits, we had set for $82,161 for 2019. That's an increase of $13,620. Operations went from $473,000, an increase of $16,000 between 2018 and 2019. Expense totals for general facilities, the entire expenditure budget $555,000, which is represents a $29,000 increase from 2018 numbers. Page 21. Planning and community development expenditures. Title self-explanatory, covers Mr. Goddard's office. Everything except code enforcement, which we'll see later. Salaries and benefits, a decrease of $34,198. In 2018, we over appropriated because we were trying to recruit a director, and we're getting it in line to the salary grid city council's job. So that's the difference there. Also, we've adjusted where the permanent tech is paid, so that is part of that decrease also. So some of the permanent tech is still there, some is moved to building. Operations, an increase of $9,900 instead of $30,200. Total expense for community development, $147,540. Net decrease of $24,283. Building expenditures, again, community development. Salaries and benefits. Here you can see some of the change between planning and community development and building, and a portion of that is where we pay individuals. We're trying to true it up with Mr. Goddard here. He's been able to make some better estimates of where people are spending their time. So for 2019, we have a $76,128 set for salaries and benefits. That's a $43,000 increase from 2019. Operations, 2019, we set the budget at $122,650. That represents a $20,958 increase. In total, budget for 2019 is $198,000, representing a $64,000 increase compared to the previous year. And again, when you look at those two budgets in concert, you see the decrease to community development of $24,000, increase of $64,000. Net that out. Page 22. This is government agency requests, and in 2018 we had 50,000 budgeted. For 2019, 51,000. This is wrong. I apologize for that. I'll need to go back and confirm that 2018 number. Below the operations numbers, you can see the requests of what was awarded and what was not. So the Association of Washington Cities, we continued that on, 3,918. Emergency services increased slightly by 3,000. Total is 16,267. Cowlitz EMS, 0, both years. Animal control, we have at 13,377. Now it looks like a decrease. Previous year we had 14,000, but we didn't end up settling on that 14,000 number. Actually, it's around 12. So the expenditure for 2018 will be about 12, so there is an increase. We're continuing to negotiate with the Humane Society. We actually thought we had a deal with them, and I understand as of today they want another meeting, so I'm not sure where it stands, but I'll let you know.
Mr. Milton,
Mr. Plaza.
how often do we use animal control?
Same question I had.
So they do keep track of the number of calls they have in the city. It is, we don't have a lot of calls. I don't have the number in front of me right now, but I can get that for you. They've provided that to us. And it's even a little bit less than when you look at it on a per capita basis with Kelso, for instance. So, yeah, we do have animals that need to be, the way way I see it, we still need the service. We don't use it a lot. I think we're about 7% of all of the animals that they take in when looking at the county, Woodland, Castle Rock, Kelso, and Longview. So we're a smaller percentage of their overall operation, but really it's the only game in town. And Kalama right now doesn't use the Humane Society, but they, from what I understand, and speaking with the city administrator, they actually care for animals they take in with city employees, and some city employees actually take these animals home. So I don't see that as being a good option for the city. And the police actually provide the animal control portion of it, where they go out and respond to calls from the public. So, the county's a little different situation. They have, different kinds of animals, not just dogs and cats, but we're talking cattle, horses, things like that. So we're attempting to negotiate separate contracts for different entities because of some of the differences, especially between the counties and the cities. The cities will all look fairly similar, I'm hoping, at the end. But we thought we were close, but apparently we have one more meeting.
And I'm going to jump in real quick, Mr. Boyce. One of the things that historically Woodland has done as well is not charge the correct, I shouldn't say correct, City Council has adopted a lower fee than what the other cities are charging for registering of animals, which is, as we talk and go back and forth, I think that historically we tend to be a little bit more lenient and not charge for the service that that the citizens are receiving. So that is something else that we'll be discussing during retreat, is possibly when we start talking about fee resolution, that is one of the fees that I would like to see increase, and I believe it's a $7 or $10 increase to register an animal. We are the lowest in the county, but this number here would be supplemented by those fees. So when we talk about being in line with everyone else, usually it's in our benefit to be in line with someone else or be in the middle, and then we also use that to our advantage as well when we're actually saying, oh, well, our service is cheaper here, but yet we're hurting ourselves at the same time. So if that makes sense.
So if the council were to wave its magic wand and say, oh, we're going to make these fees, higher $7, $8 to do that, what are we going to get? What's the level of service
Well-
that we can expect to receive in return? Because right now
Right.
we're not getting really
No,
good
and I
service.
understand there's the service conversation that needs to happen as well, but there's also the fee resolution that also needs to be talked about. Because again, that fee resolution helps with whatever that number is, and when Mr. Boyce says it's the only game in town, we've looked at other places. We've asked Clark County, we've talked about doing it ourselves, it's just not feasible.
So
Clark.
our fees have doubled, but I still don't see anything different from this group. So I'm trying to understand, if we raise them even more, what do we expect to receive? Because it doesn't seem like we're going to.
No, and we're on the same page with that.
How does it benefit the citizens if we raise the fees to $7, $8 by $7 or $8 to register an animal?
Well, and realistically, the service level would not change. It would be the same. From what we're hearing from the Humane Society is they started spending down reserves of money they received through donations for the mission. For the city, we're talking animal control, and we're talking a 3-day hold on those animals. And then after the fact, that's all the Humane Society mission. So with the finances they're showing us, basically they've depleted those donations they've received over the years. And now, in order to maintain operations, they're coming to the cities and the county asking for substantial increases. We're getting off easy compared to what the county and Longview and Kelso are chipping in. But really, we're not expecting a change in service.
Well, I think they go where the money is. the money is Longview and Kelso, because it's one of those things, out of sight, out of mind. It's Woodland. Why would I go there and do what I need to get done, because it's an hour round trip?
And what they're, how they're setting who has what shares based on the number of animals and, the service they're providing to each entity. So they're breaking it down on a percentage basis.
With the stats that they did send, how many of those calls from Woodland were dangerous dogs calls or other
I don't
threatening
know if
type
I've seen that
animals?
breakdown.
Do you know, Chief, off the top of your head? No?
I've seen the number of calls, but I haven't seen how many are attributed to
A dangerous dog versus a cat strolling down the street, somebody calls the Humane Society.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I did learn that the majority of the animals that they deal with are cats, which we don't license.
Which I think we should.
There was some discussion at our meetings, but it doesn't sound like the other entities are wanting to go down that road. So more to come. The Dyking assessment, slight increase from 9,000 to 9,116. Air pollution control, an increase from 2,500 to 3,154. The COG, Pallets Economic Development Council from 2,000 to 2,500. Woodland Action Center, increased from 2,500 to 0. They did not make a request this year. Woodland Public Schools, marked at 0. They've made a request the last 2 years. We're not recommending funding that at this time. LCCAC staying at 1,500, and substance abuse staying at $1,600. So those are the recommendations.
I know what this is for, but can you provide the acronym, the LCCAC? It's the
Basically, it's the
Advocacy Center, isn't it?
Lower Columbia?
I'd have to look it up.
Give me a minute, I'll get that.
I should print that in there. So
I'm sorry.
That's the cat bus, right? Is that the cat?
I
No.
think that's the Advocacy Center,
Oh.
for kids.
It's all up real quick here.
Yeah, because Center that works with CJ.
It is the Advocacy Center, yes.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
it's a good
LCCAC.
That's
Lake County
Or
Children's.
Community Action
Oh,
Council.
I'm looking at the wrong one. There's multiple LCCACs apparently, and they're all advocacy.
And
the 2019 amount that's in this column here on page 22 is the amount that is included in the budget.
Correct.
Can you, on emergency services, can you explain the $3,200 increase year over year on exactly why the increase?
And I don't have that information on it. I'll have to get that.
Okay.
for you. It may be, and we did provide you with the requests. So behind tab 4, you have the requests from the agencies.
Well, that's Ernie. That would be Ernie, the DEM.
Page 78 is the request. So it doesn't really give a synopsis of what changed. It's just saying our best estimate for 2019 is the.
Any chance we can get Mr. Schnabler to come here and, easy for me to say. and actually explain at a council workshop, or not a workshop, but just a presentation prior to a council meeting in between now and
Sure.
No, it states in here that he's gonna have a meeting and we're gonna be invited to that. He did it last year as well.
he's coming here though.
And he can come here. I'm just saying.
So we'll find out when that is.
Okay.
Page,
Before we move on, question again real quick. I might be the only guy on the council here that doesn't know what these are for, but can you break down exactly what we get for the air pollution control money and the substance abuse money?
so I'll have to provide
That-
that to you. I don't have-
That, I believe we have that conversation every year.
Every year.
And we are taxed per resident within the city for air.
Yes. So we don't pay the taxes.
The way
every
it's
year.
summarizing.
So we have no control over this money? Who taxes us with it?
It goes to the state. If you go back to Section 4, page 79, the Washington Clean Air Act requires that Southwest Clean Air Agency notify each city, town, and county within its jurisdiction of their share of the supplemental income to be paid.
Okay.
So they probably increased it because of our population.
Possibly,
Is that correct?
yes. Based on the population data provided by the State of Washington, OFM, or Office of Financial Management, the amount must be included in your calendar year budgeting for 2019.
Okay, so just to be clear, this isn't something that we're imposing on everybody, this is the state.
This would be the great state of Washington.
Okay, what about substance abuse? Anybody?
That one. Which one's this one? Oh, there's CAP. This one I thought that was LCC.
Clean air.
Wait, isn't that? Hold on a second. Which one are you looking at for the LCCAC is the CAP bus?
No, no, no.
No, no?
It's the advocacy side.
Lower Columbia CAP.
Transportation service.
That's not the transportation service for
It
1500?
is.
That is the CAP bus. That's what I
It is
thought.
cap.
Yeah, the LCCAC is the CAP program. Lower Columbia
The
CAP.
advocacy center.
So that's the bus that comes in.
Maybe they didn't make that.
The advocacy group, wouldn't that be listed in, Chief, in your budget? The Children's
For
Advocate,
CJAC?
Yes.
that will be in the police department budget.
Is it in the budget this year?
I'm sure it is. We'll have to go when we get there.
It's been a while.
Okay.
Which one were we looking for again? Oh, substance abuse. I don't think it's in
Let's
here.
see.
Let's see.
There's no
Yeah, I couldn't find anything
Yeah.
either, so, is that something we can have for the next meeting, maybe?
Yes.
So, and I will say for the LCCAC, the CAP program, continually, they seem to be evaluating their program. I believe this to be a very important program. This is something that helps folks get into work, school, something that we don't have C-Train out here. This isn't. I believe this is a necessary resource for our city to support. But also, if you notice, year over year, they're continuing slightly increasing their fares. So, when in 2016 we budgeted 1,000, 2017 it was 1,500. So they did go up a little bit, but they also did raise their fees a little bit. So obviously there's a cost of doing business. They haven't increased it in a couple of years. So I just believe it to be necessary. I advocate for that one.
I do too.
Also know that this is how a lot of people get to their mental health
Yes,
and be able to take their meds, and that's really important.
absolutely.
Okay, moving on to police, next page, 23. Now this, we'll have to have a little bit of discussion on. So you can see the expenditures for 2018 are higher than 2019. So the question is, why is that? What happened? So part of it, we'll have to have a discussion and decide which way we want to go, but one item, our left one employee, the expense for that individual has gone down quite a bit, as the individual is going to Medicare. So in 2018, we were budgeting about $30,000 for those benefits, and now it's down to right around $7,000. So significant savings there.
So, Mr. Boyce, just to clarify on that left one, the last remaining left one, the city is responsible for anything that Medicare does not pick up, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Including long-term care. So that's my understanding.
Which, if that were the case, then those costs would increase substantially.
Right. We do have insurance provided in case that becomes a reality. But we're blessed with a low number of left one retirees. There are some jurisdictions with multiple. So it is an expensive line item, but something we're required to cover. So the good news is it went from about 30,000 up to about 7,000 in 2 years. Secondly, in 2018, we had budgeted about 40,000 for overtime in the PD, and that was to cover training expenses. When we were looking at 2018 and projecting out where the budget would end, it looked like they were getting their training for the rest of the overtime they had appropriated. So we didn't include that in 2019. So the intent is not to reduce training. The intent is to maintain training at the 2018 levels. But this is part of the discussion. The chief and I talked a little bit today, and I'll let him chime in and give city council his information. If again, we want to maintain the training level of the police department. There's no intent to cut training. But what we're seeing in 2018 is that we're absorbing that training expense in the overtime that was allotted for just general purposes. It gets a little complicated in 2018 because we had a couple vacancies. So there's a lot of different dynamics going on in the budget. We received some vacancy savings by not having those folks hired. But in turn, we had some overtime expense associated with backfilling those positions. So with that, I'll let the chief, speak to it a little bit, let you know what's on his mind. If it turns out in 2019, let's say we go with the budget the way it is, that overtime starts rising or exceeding what we have appropriated due to training, we could do a budget amendment, or we could do it up front, and any amount that isn't used just gets absorbed back in the fund balance.
And there may be a potential to realize some cuts in our overtime budget because of a potentially full complement of officers. So the more officers we have, the more we can adjust shifts to cover those guys on training. However, some of those, obviously we're gonna probably accrue some sort of overtime just in general business. But some of those costs may be real, or some of those savings may be realized with a full complement of officers. And that's just an estimate on my part. But I think we'll see some savings. I wouldn't say significant, but the savings could be realized at the end. However, if we do have, we're in the process of sending an individual to the academy beginning tomorrow morning. Those mandatory training things may have to be accrued by us, those training costs for him, once he's out of the academy. And there's other factors with lateral entry employees that may be needing current training or brought up to speed with the rest of the officers. Those might be another unrecognized cost for training. Those and until those individuals are up to speed and out on their own, there may be some overtime costs associated with the training as well. So it's difficult it's difficult to think about cutting our training budget or reducing our training budget. I won't say cutting, reducing our training budget only for those potential costs that could arise.
So, like I said, the intent is, as the mayor stated, we're trying to prioritize public safety. So the intent is in no way to cut or reduce training. It should be noted too that we included the 3.75% COLA in these numbers. Now, we haven't settled on a contract, but that was the city's good faith proposal at this point. And moving forward, it doesn't seem that it would be reduced from that point moving forward. So that's why it was included. The salary and benefit impact on that is about $25,000 increase. So we over appropriated a little bit in 2018. We're seeing some savings in 2019 with the left one employee. That's why when we're looking at the salary and benefits, it looks odd considering that we included a 3.75%. So we can have more discussion on that too. The chief makes this presentation next week, but information for you to absorb and think about. Any other questions right off?
Just got a couple quick ones. Do we have or does your department have a defensive tactics instructor right now?
No.
So how much does it cost when we have our guys do their
Depends on
training?
what type of deal we can cut with other agencies.
On average, that's
I don't have enough.
number.
information.
No, okay. What about a SART investigator? Somebody that's certified, sexual assault certified investigator? Anybody been to SART SANE training?
I don't know if we in the past, we've had our detective cover all the sexual
Right.
assaults and some of the juvenile cases that we've received. Don't know if anybody's certified in that.
Okay. Has he been through at least been through the criminal investigators class? The basic
Yes.
one? Okay, awesome. Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, moving down to operations, there's a $25,000 increase from $360,000 in 2018 up to $385,000 in 2019. Overall, you see a net decrease to the police budget of $10,619. The total expense being set at $1.728 million. Again, the police is one of the bigger expenditure categories for the general fund, representing about 30% of total appropriations. Next item, code enforcement. This is under the community development department. We have a part-time code enforcement officer. We have a decrease in salaries and benefits. I need to look that up to see exactly why that happened. So a decrease of about $2,900. So we'll verify that number. Operations, an increase of $400 to $2,400. Total overall, a decrease of $2,546. Total budget for code enforcement at $28,917.
Do we have any active enforcement issues with liens?
I'm sorry?
Do we have any active enforcement issues currently with requiring abatement that has forced the city to put a lien on somebody's property or?
I only know of one
Okay.
for a house on CC Street, and unfortunately, Mary might be able to answer if there are more older ones, but I'm only aware of one at this point.
And the operations budget allows for that sort of abatement, because it's my understanding the city does the abatement, and then that's the lien that is put on the property then. Is that correct?
Right. It doesn't always hit this budget. Sometimes it hits Public Works.
Okay.
Depends who does the actual work. You know, if it's high grass or debris that needs to be cleared, you know, may hit Public Works Street. You know, just one of their funds usually. And Mr. Goddard also had an answer for the salary change. We're using the part-time code enforcement officer to sometimes cover the building counter. So, you know, as you know, we only have 2 FTEs plus, you know, the part-time code enforcement officer. So we're trying to keep that building counter manned as often as possible. So with the reallocation of hours, looking at where people are spending their time, that results in that increase. Okay, next page 24, fire expenditures. As we noted before, we're looking at a $102,000 increase. So the final budget for 2019 is at $1,206,316. And that represents about 20% of general fund expenditures. Capital expenditures. And that change numbers. Apologies for that. So the 2019 budget is $76,270. Last year in 2018, we had appropriated $119,143. Below that, you can see some of the items that have been funded. The equipment general city hall at $1,270. I believe that is a software purchase, and we'll talk about that next week. Equipment for police vehicles, we budgeted $50,000 for a patrol car this year. Police equipment, we had $25,000. Chief, can you?
I believe that's the ongoing mobile data.
Chief
So
Kelly?
That's for the new radios? The new radios?
No, the new radios was council approved that last session.
Is that's included with this, though? Yeah.
No, this
No.
one is standalone.
Okay.
For the mobile data terminals that we rotate.
Chief Kelly?
Sir,
The amount that's budgeted for the police vehicle, I'm assuming you're purchasing SUV.
that is our annual rotation. I'm not sure if it's going to be an SUV. We're gonna talk to whoever's up next to find out which one they prefer.
Okay. Does
That's
that?
my intent.
It seems like that number's too low in my mind. Once you equip it with lights and all the other good stuff, are you going to be able to take that from another car?
I would have to see if I don't know the answer to that, sir.
Okay, that's okay.
I can only assume that if we take it from an SUV, it'll fit in an SUV. If we take it from a car, it'll fit a car. I'm not sure how that dynamic will work. And I have to find out exactly what we spent on the last SUV. It might be up in the neighborhood of 52, but I'm not positive. I'd
It
have to
seems
check.
to me like the number's too low. I just want to make sure it's accurate.
I thought one of the vehicles was $45,000, but I could be wrong.
And I will have an answer for you next.
I just want to make sure you all have it correct. Once you add lights, push bar, I think you get over that 50 number. But if you have them, that you can use them from another vehicle, then great.
Okay. Moving on, page 25, we're out of the general fund now. So the petty cash fund has $1,150 in there. There's no change between 2018 and 2019. Advanced travel revolving fund, That's $2,000 for 2019, again, no change. The next page, page 26, is the park fund. So we're trying to show revenues and expenditures on these funds so you can see them together. The current revenue coming in at $211,916. The increase of $29,629. Beginning fund balance for 2019 is $644. We need to change the 2018 to 2019 number. I think that's around $5,000. Total revenue budget for 2019 comes at $212,560. Salary and benefits, you can see an increase of $31,000. This is one of the areas we're going back and forth on whether or not to fund at the level that was requested. We ended up doing that, funding at this level. But unless there's a new revenue source, I don't see that happening in 2020. And in order to ramp up to have the parks maintained at the level they are, we've had to, if you look historically, the amount in salaries and benefits has greatly increased from year over year, and we'll provide that information to the city council also. Operations, we're coming in at $90,477, $2,300 increase over the previous year. Capital, we have a net decrease of $3,128, so we aren't making capital purchases this year. Total expenditures for 2019 come in at $212,560, no change of $30,273. And the Public Works Director will provide more detail next week. Any questions, Fred? Next page, page 27, is the street fund. Current revenues we're expecting in 2019 are $813,864. A net increase of $33,230. Beginning fund balance is dropping by $46,421. Total revenue for the fund is $941,476. Net decrease of $13,191. Expenditures, salary and benefits, $315,278. Net change of $48,000, increase of $48,117. Operations, there's a decrease of $76,000. Budget set at $602,265. Most of that decrease, again, ending fund balance is in there. So that accounts for most of the increase. Capital at $23,933, increase of $15,333 over 2018. And total expenditures for 2019 at $941,476. Net decrease of $13,191. All right, next page, page 28, document reporting fee fund. Basically, we seed in about $6,000 every year on this fund, and this money is passed on to the Woodland Action Center. So really, no change from 2018 to 2019, still at $6,000, and again, expenditures, right around $6,000. Page 29, hotel motel tax fund. current revenue for 2019 is set at $66,250, an increase of $7,316 from 2018. Beginning fund balance, we're looking at $50,096, slight decrease by $3,240. In total resources equal $116,346. Net change to 2018 to 2019, a decrease of $22,924.
Mr. Boyce,
Yes.
that top number for the change to 2018 to 2019 might need some revision.
Yeah, that's why I paused. Okay, need to. Oh, sorry, total budget for 2018 should be $58,000. Apologies for the error. The expenditures for 2019, any of these changes we make will get you guys a copy. So operations, total budget for 2019, $61,346. For 2018, it was $139,270, net decrease of $77,924. Again, it includes fund balance, and as Mr. Benjamin indicated that it would be beneficial to back out that fund balance to get a truer picture, so we did that. Capital 2019, there's $55,000 budgeted. The change from 2018 to 2019 is $55,000 budgeted for 2018. The total recommendation is $116,346. Net decrease of $22,924. And below, you'll see a breakdown of what the committee had recommended, and then the mayor's recommendation, which appears in the preliminary budget. And you can also see what was requested in that far left-hand column. So the first item, the capital project land facility, we had $55,000. That's for the visitor center. Woodland Information Center, they requested $50,000 for operations of the current visitor center. Mayor's recommended $30,000. DWR Hot Summer Nights, committee recommended $100, and the mayor's also recommending $100. Planners Day Committee, steady at $5,000 on the recommendations. The Lilac Gardens, again, $5,800. That's what the committee recommended, and the mayor. Blooms to Brews, the request was $7,000 from the organization. The committee recommended $2,500. The mayor has $5,000. Wire Racing Triathlon, that's a new event that we've been meeting about. The request was for $15,000. The committee said $2,500. The mayor recommended $5,000. So, big idea is on here, but that program has gone away, so zeros across the board. So
Question?
Yeah.
The Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, I'm assuming they had all the information when they made their recommendation, and that includes the mayor's recommendation of $55,000 for a capital project?
No, they haven't been made aware of that.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm not
Go ahead, fire away.
Okay.
Put me on the hot seat, let's go.
Committee recommended $2,500 for both the Y
Mhm.
Racing and the Blooms to Brew.
Yes.
They do bring people in and put beds and beds grants, if that's what this is all about. But you doubled it. Can I ask what?
Yes, in an effort to create a more business-friendly environment, and to bring business into town, I don't think that $2,500. Looking at the request of $7,000, Get Bold has significantly reduced their asking over the years, and I appreciate that. But also having conversations with him, he's still somewhat struggling a little bit when it comes to advertising. Y Racing is a new event that is a national qualifier that needs a new home. I
Joe, their initial qualifier, we asked that question.
Oh, I thought they said they were. They're a qualifier for.
Might be for something, but not for
Okay.
us.
No, not that's for the triathlon one. So trying to start that up in the area, I just think that in an effort to be a better advocate for a business group, I don't think that $2,500 says, yes, we want you to come and do your event here. These folks come here, and hopefully the goal is that they put heads in beds, they're shopping at our restaurants, they're shopping at our stores, they're shopping and using the goods and services for our retail community here. That was more of an effort for me to say, hey, we do want you to come here. We want you to bring your people here. We want you to spend your dollars here. As far as, because the next question is going to be, why did you reduce the Woodland Info Center by $20,000?
No, that's
Okay, never mind.
fine. That was nice.
But that one down there is going to ask, and probably this one right over here.
And I'm guessing that's also why we're given $5,800 to hold the Klager?
So the Lilac Gardens, that's been a consistent number that they've asked for, and I believe that they spend almost every dollar.
They spend every
But-
dollar.
And they
that's why
go
we-
all the way into
Yes.
Seattle and Canton. They do what they're supposed to with the money. And
They bring
A private entity, though, right? Why are we?
They're a nonprofit,
Oh, they are?
but
Oh,
they
okay.
they also bring 20,000 people into town in 1 week.
Okay.
So again,
And
hopefully.
More than that, if you look at the whole
Yeah.
Yeah.
season.
Perfect.
Where was I? Woodland Info Center. So looking at that $50,000 recommendation, and I know that there's operational needs, but there's also a need for a new facility. At this time, what's the plan? I need to go and speak to the board of the business chamber, but the idea is the $50,000 will still be allotted, but 20,000 of that is going to be put into a building fund of some sort to get that new visitor center. The city can't afford to build a new facility on its own. These dollars can be used for that, but also there's also another plan with the county that is currently going, and hopefully we'll be approaching our legislators, which will be coming to the business community as well to help support, which is getting that 2% back into the city. And currently, right now, Cowlitz County and Snohomish County keep those funds, those additional 2%. For whatever reason, when the law changed back in '97, Cowlitz and Snohomish were not included into that new legislation. So we are pushing back on the county a little bit to try and get those dollars back here. So the hope is that 2% will come back and supplement what we've got going on here. But we need a new facility. The city can't afford to build it on our own. These dollars can help us do that. Again, this is a recommendation. Council can change it as they wish. I just believe that setting that money aside to help with a capital project is more important than daily operations.
And the funds, can you be used for a capital project?
Yes.
Can the funds be used to pay debt service?
I don't know the answer.
I don't know the answer to
I
that.
believe so.
Can,
You mean
These
like
funds
borrow
were
against-
supposed to be used to increase our tourism, to put heads in beds, to bring people in to buy food and do our restaurants and go to our stores. That's what that money is supposed to be used for. And part of the reason that we had done smaller amounts was we didn't know about your capital project.
I didn't know about it
We knew
either.
That we needed a new
Yeah.
tourist information center, and so hoping that some of that money could be used for that to attract more people here. So that we could do things like plug in for their electric cars and all of those kinds of things.
I guess setting that money aside, obviously we're not going to be able to build it in 2019 off of
No.
$20,000. But if we start the process now and start saving, we'll have those matching funds for grants possibly going down the road. It's just a start to get there.
have we explored looking, and I'm just thinking outside the box, Have you explored looking at a lodging tax for a specific item? In this case, paying for a long-term debt service, if it is allowed under state law, for a specific project that in turn does put heads in beds, but would be an overall increase over what you're currently collecting a day specific to that project and charged to people who are staying in the hotels and motels in Woodland.
No, we have not.
That might be another avenue to explore.
And I also wanted to mention behind tab 5, you'll see all of the requests.
I do want to say, because I can feel the tension in the room. This was not personal. If you go back to some of the other things that were not funded this year as well, we've done our best to be fair across the board. Oh, I do. It's coming in from both sides right now. Normally it's just from one side. I feel it from both.
But at least you have an explanation of why you did what you did.
Thank you.
Basically, I can disagree with you later.
I've left you an out. All right, page 30.
Okay, so page 30, we're hitting the debt service fund. So LPGO 2012, this is the original debt that was incurred basically for construction of the police station and the purchase of a fire truck. So right now we're seeing current revenue of $180,850, beginning fund balance $317,950, total resources for 2019 are $498,800, which is a $12,000 increase from the previous year on the revenue side. Expenditures, the same thing, all attributed to debt service, $498,800. Next page, 31. This was another debt service fund created for one that was to finish the police station. So we have total resources of $133,292, and the expenditure budget, that same amount, $133,292, slight increase of $3,200 year over year. The next page, 32. This was debt service incurred to finish construction on the new fire station. So total resources we have at $46,011, and the debt service for 2019 will equal that same amount. So those are the three debt service funds with not much discretion on whether or not we pay those. So, all right. So the next page is the General Reserve Fund for 301, and we talked a lot about this fund. This is we hit most of the highlights earlier in the meeting about what revenue is restricted and what's not. So total resources for the fund are sitting at $1.1 million. What did I do there? Another 1 point, I have an extra one in there. So $1,682,327. The operations include the same amount, $1,682,327. I think we talked about this fund earlier. Any questions on this, or? Page 34, equipment acquisition funds. Every year we put 1% of the sales tax in this fund, and it's used to, it's basically used for equipment purchases. Last year we purchased a new server for City Hall, and so the revenues for 2019 are set at $24,739. Net decrease, and we'll talk about that a little more on next week. Operations side of things, $24,739. No major expenditures are coming from this, so most of that is just in fund balance. Page 35, Scott Avenue Reconnection Fund. So, we talked about this one too. We've done some work on the Scott Avenue reconnection over years, as most of you know. We've worked with our consultant and have an identified plan for what we want to see on Scott Avenue reconnection. Basically an underpass under I-5. It's currently not supported by WashDOT, so it's our long-term goal to make that happen. As far as revenue goes, we have a fund balance of $32,340 in that fund, and later on we'll talk about moving that. We're going to, the remainder of the grant that was awarded the city, we're working with WashDOT and looking at other projects we can get done in the city that would benefit our transportation gridlock that we have going. So that's still to come. So again, we'll be moving that $32,340 out to another fund, and we'll get to that a little bit here. And we're doing that in conjunction with Highway Administration and WashDOT, getting the proper approvals to use the money for that purpose. Next fund, South Woodland Safe Routes to School Fund. This is a new fund that was set up. So again, we received a grant, and basically we're looking at $145,000 in resources and capital expenditure in that same amount. And this is to get sidewalks out to middle school on 503.
Did the grant come in, or it's decided this summer?
Well, according to our public works director, she is 90% sure we are going to get that.
Okay.
Huge.
It's a huge.
It hasn't been awarded yet, but in her contact with the granting agency, she is
We're in a good
very
spot.
confident we're going to get this.
Isn't this
It's like a
done
1.4.
next month?
I think
July.
she's going to-
Is it
No,
July?
I think she's going to, I mean, that might be when it's awarded, but I think she's going to know next
I can't remember when it's
month.
going to be awarded. So if we don't get the award, this fund will go away. But we're being bullish, and Tracy's feeling like she's got it, so we're going to set the appropriation.
Well, and it's such a small fee to get a 1.4, I think it's $1.4 million, that sounds about right, project, and that would extend a sidewalk from Gun Club all the way out to the intermediate school, which would be amazing.
Amazing, wonderful.
While we're talking about streets, you mentioned earlier in the mayor's message on page 5 that the city receives, the street fund comes from property Major revenues for the street fund come from property and sales tax and gas tax. Are we receiving a gas tax revenue from the state or the federal government?
Yeah, so.
And how much is that per annum?
Let me get you that number.
It's huge. It's a big dollar amount. $8 annually. It's our portion.
I don't know, but our gas is more expensive than it is in California, that's so much
It's all tax.
tax. Yeah, we gotta get some.
Why, Mr. Boyce looks for that. I did have a conversation with Mr. Orcutt, Representative Orcutt, asking that all gas money spent or all funds spent on gas in the city of Woodland, the city should be able to keep all that tax on that is added to each gallon. And he smirked and walked away. Listen, I'm always trying. I'm always trying.
So we're estimating $128,568 for 2019.
128. It's a fair amount.
Is it fair? No, it's not.
Bear with me, Paul, we missed it.
That's right.
Okay, moving on to page.
No.
Moving on to page 36, Fund 326, COG STP Exit 21 Fund. We discussed this earlier. This is the $600,000 we have been awarded and will receive in 2019 to help study solutions for the Exit 21 traffic issue we have. Again, revenues and expenditures are set at $600,000. Here you can see under current revenue, that represents the grant amount, $553,756. The fund balance, $46,244, represents the city's match. Next fund right below that is the impact fees for the fire fund, $351. So the current revenues we expect to collect in 2019 equal $235,714. Overall, total resources would be, current revenue is $81,800. Beginning fund balance is the $235,714 for a total of $317,514. So impact fees.
And Mr. Boyce, currently that, I might have missed it. Currently that money's going to debt service, or some of that money's going to debt service on the fire impact fees?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think so. I just wanted to state that. I don't know what percentage, but
And I believe part of that was for the land purchase that
Yeah.
we're sitting on now, where the fire station is and
Yeah.
the police station.
Do we have any long-term debt payments that are set to expire in 2019 and 2020?
I believe we do. But I'll have to get back with you which ones those are. But we do have two small ones, I believe, that are retiring. But the major ones are, the major debt we have right now is for this facility and the fire station and the purchase of the property.
I thought we had a fire truck coming on soon.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It's the fire truck that is off as of 2019.
So we pay through 2019?
No, I think it stopped in 2018. I think that was the last payment.
Do you know what that annual payment was, amount?
I want to say it's around 20. Yeah, I'm thinking 20. 22 maybe. It's not huge.
That's okay. You don't have to find it. I can find it later.
For sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't think it's much. I mean, it's a lot of money, but I mean, grand
In the
scheme of
overall
things.
scheme of
Yeah.
things.
We'll help out at some point. How about that?
So page 37, we have park impact fees, Fund 352. We expect to receive about $21,100 in 2019. Beginning fund balance is $137,256. Total resources, we show equaling $158,356. And we budget that amount usually every year. So if an expenditure comes up, we work out.
Does this amount include the dog park that's at the off-ramp of the freeway?
I believe so.
Just
No,
excellent.
that wasn't that budgeted for. That was budgeted
Or
for
was
this
that
year.
2018?
That's 2018 numbers. So the
Okay.
answer to your question, no.
So it'll be for next year then that it'll be budgeted for, because it hasn't been, we haven't spent the money yet because the project's not done.
Right.
So
It depends when it happens. So if it's
Right.
if she gets it done before the end of the fiscal year, the calendar year, the expense will happen in 2018. Otherwise,
So it'll be in 2019. And just to clarify, are there any funds that are in the park impact fees or any of these fees that we have that are going to be expiring within the next 5 years?
I will have to look that up for you.
Okay. Because we have 10 years to use it,
Right.
use them
Right.
for a project.
Right. I don't believe there are any expiring in 2019, but let me look that up.
Okay.
Yeah, we did talk about this, but I thought it was 5 years, not 10 years.
No, it's 10.
Is it 10?
I think it came out that it was 10 years.
Yeah,
Oh,
everybody thought
okay.
it was 5, and
We-
then we found out it was 10.
Okay.
We
Okay.
passed it whenever it was an emergency, before it was an emergency. It's not an emergency.
And we're focusing on page 37.
All right, moving right along. That we're rehashing anything.
Let's go to impact fees for transportation.
What do you
Fund
think?
353.
I'm gonna hand you your card.
We expect to take in $41,588 or $599 in revenue for 2019. Beginning fund balance is $326,100. Total resources equal $367,699. Expenditures that same amount. So in this budget, we will be using some transportation impact fees for grant matches on some of these sidewalk projects and other items, so it will be used. Next page, page 38, the water fund, Fund 401. So current revenue set at $2,018,420. Beginning fund balance for 2019 is $664,727. Total resources of $2,683,147. Expenditures, salary and benefits, $574,450. The net change between 18 and 19 is $16,590 increase. Operations, again, when you back out the ending fund balance, 1.9 million, net decrease of 179,480. And part of that is due to the transfer for the HVAC project, electrical valve project. Capital is set for $56,028. The change from 2018 to 2019 is 47,333. I think part of that is for the purchase of a new dump truck, which is shared between different funds, the water fund, sewer fund, and the road and street fund. There's debt service in this fund also of $55,255. So the total expenditures, including fund balance, ending fund balance is $2,683,147. Sewer fund, Fund 402, page 39. Current revenue, we expect to receive $2,533,000 in 2019. We have a beginning fund balance of $1,413,294 for total resources of $3,946,378. Net change from 2018 to 2019 of $121,000. Expenditures, salary and benefits are at $608,000. Operations, $1,606,227. Capital for 2019 is set at $1,414,864. There's debt service in the fund to the tune of $316,301. So total expenditures plus ending fund balance of $3,946,378. The net change is an increase of $121,423.
Mr. Boyce, do we have an understanding yet of how much the Screw Press project is saving the city on a monthly or an annual basis?
I will request that from the director, so she can share that.
Okay.
I think the previous director said it was going to be about $100,000 annually.
I think it's a little more than
We have another question.
Oh, Mr. Plaza?
How many employees are under the sewer fund that get paid? Obviously, they're under the sewer fund, but how many employees are we paying to work on the sewer?
Well, and one moment here. So, if you go to page, or tab 6, page 125, it's one of the fold-out sheets. So you can see, so we list out the different positions, and you can see where they're spending their time. So for Sewer Fund 402, if you move across, you can see the percentage of time being charged to that fund. So you have the Public Works Director, 27% of the salary, the engineering and tech, 32%, clerk, about 32%, Public Works Operations Superintendent, 31%. And then you have the wastewater treatment plant superintendent, so there's one full-time FTE, the operator, another full-time FTE, and then you just have other folks pitching in when necessary. So some of these folks help out at the plant, but every time there's a sewer break or sewer maintenance that needs to be done, those folks that work on that distribution system are charged to that fund.
Okay, so technically, we've got like 2 or 3 guys that work on it full-time, and then other guys that pitch in as needed.
Right. And you can see the percentage of their time
Yeah.
they're spending.
No, I was just curious because it just seemed kind of weird to me. I mean, you explained a little better, but that the sewer budget would be, in salary and benefits, would be half of what the police department gets when they've got, only a few people that work on it, so I was just kind of wondering where that dollar figure came from.
Right. And so we throughout the year, we track where people are spending their time, and that's how those percentages are calculated.
It is a little somewhat misleading, though, from a standpoint of if you're comparing the police department's salary budget and the budget from the water and sewer fund, because the water and sewer fund is an enterprise fund.
Right, yeah, I just didn't know how, that's
Yeah.
why I was trying to figure out, because I didn't know how the payment worked.
So-
I didn't know if we had like
Yeah.
2 guys that were getting paid $600,000 a year, if we had a whole team of guys, or, how that balances out, so I was just trying to.
And if any of the department heads spend any of their time working on sewer, Mr. Boyce, a percentage of his salary is also out of each, the park fund, the street fund, the sewer fund, the water fund.
And city council time, insurance. We charge administrative fees to the funds outside the general fund that get general fund services, so we try to account for that also. All right, so back to page 39. So the expenditures in the sewer fund, $608,000 for salary and benefits. Well, I guess we already went through that. So the net increase from 2018 to 2019 is $121,000. Total budget, including ending fund balance, $3,946,000. Next page, page 40, garbage collection fund, 403. With total resources, set at $923,942. You can see the beginning fund balance of $300. Basically, it's a pass-through fund. Expenditures set at that same amount, $923,942. Booster pump fund, 413. Revenue, current revenue of $552,500. No beginning fund balance. And kind of a pass-through capital, $552,500. Page 41, the water treatment plant, electrical HVAC valve fund that we talked about earlier. This is a major project for this fund. So we have, we're expecting revenue this year of $215,051. Beginning fund balance is $744,000 that was transferred in 2018. Total resources $959,051. So the $215,000 we're moving this year into this fund. That's mostly for the valve project. We went out for bids, this just recently. We received bids back, and we anticipated that valve project to cost the city quite a bit more. So we're seeing a net savings from what we anticipated that cost to be. So it was as an option on that project, and with the price we got for wanting to take it. So the capital expenditures equal that same amount, $959,000. Fund 421, water utility reserve. Current revenue, we expect to receive $181,068. Beginning fund balance, $438,000. Total resources of $619,000. And expenditures at that same amount. Page 42, sewer utility reserve fund, 422. Current budget set at current revenue set at $243,055. That's the beginning fund balance of $319,757. Total resources of $562,012. Expenditures, same amount. The utility deposit fund, $640. Total resources, we have $223,661. Expenditures set at that same amount. And the last one, $643, impact fees for school. Again, this is, we collect the funds and then distribute to the schools. So you see the zero beginning fund balance. We estimate about $200,000 in revenue to be received, and that would go
stop?
We were just getting started.
So,
You guys have fun.
so the enhancement request we have next, we're gonna talk about, the department directors can talk about that in review next week. We'll hear about what they asked for, what they received, and what they didn't receive, and what concerns, and what goals they have for next year. So with that, I guess we'll,
Questions? Questions for Mr. Boyce about what was reviewed this evening?
No, but thank you.
Yes.
and I apologize for some of the typos in there, and we'll make corrections that you can request sheets.
Thank you. This is a lot of work, so thank you.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Do I need to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 9:45.
Yeah.